Hi everyone, so there has been a lot of talk last night about the rogue poison nerf. If you haven't seen that yet, there was a video made by Lucky Luciano, pretty nice guy by the way. He made a lot of like poison rogue builds in the past and all that stuff. And apparently people have found out some testing by Ava that was done here, that there are some stats that do no longer apply to poison imbuement damage. So you watch this video here, and it turns out that, well, in the past, the way that poison imbuement works, it had some probably unintended interactions that are described here. So basically, you had core, basic, ultimate skill damage, and also damage with cutthroat and damage with marksman skill damage, that instead of being in the additive damage category like all the other stats basically, they added a multiplier to the calculation for poison imbuement builds. So what this means is that suddenly you can stack up something like a ×2, ×3 or so multiplier from those stats quite easily through a glyph, through some stats on your gear, etc. And well, then you would multiply the rest of your additive damage with a much higher outcome. So the net result of that probably bug was something like a ×3 or so damage multiplier for poison imbuement. That was most likely unintended. So what happened now is that people found out that those stats no longer do anything, and in fact don't even buff your poison imbuement at all. There is a sheet here made by Ava. I just mentioned the guy. He has done a lot of testing of this in the past and shared this with the community. So shout out to him. And there's actually an entire sheet of different things that work or do not work here, with also quite a lot of recent retesting because of those findings. So this was not included in the patch notes. And now these stats just don't do anything anymore. And a lot of people think rogues are dead and shadow nerfed and, you know, all that stuff. But the thing is that you might have seen my Lilith kill from start of the season, day 1. I did like an upload on my YouTube where I just went in with my level 100 rogue just after I dinked level 100 and I killed Lilith. And then I have started a new rogue and I have not really touched my old character very much. So this is basically still the same setup that I was playing here last night after everyone was crying for the shadow nerf. And it turns out yeah, rogue is a very dead class, it seems. So the thing is that this nerf probably actually happened on season start and not actually last night when people found it. It was just, you know, a delayed discovery. So I don't think there's actually anything to worry about here for the rogues, to be honest. Like, those bosses still melt, poison is still ridiculous, and in fact, because of these bugs, at the very least for Twisting Blades builds, there are some other bugs as well that make it way stronger than intended, so that this part matters quite a little compared to this part here, for example. So, especially with the Blade Dancer aspect, poison imbuement is still ridiculous. And the funny thing is, in this clip here that you just saw, I was playing such an unoptimized setup. I actually had like 2 or 3 legendary aspects that didn't even do anything, and a legendary node. So I just pulled up the sheet here, and these are some things that I didn't know beforehand. So this is the first time I saw the sheet last night, but there are some pretty interesting findings in here. For example, I was running both expectant and edgemaster aspects in this setup here in this clip, that both do not actually do anything for poison imbuement, turns out. So this is clearly a bug. And also the weapon mastery passive is something that can be omitted. It also does not work for it at all. And another big one here would be the tricks of the trade legendary node on the paragons. This is usually a very efficient one to take for close quarter combat builds. And this is also what I was playing there, and I had these passive points there allocated for no reason, basically. So there are some other findings in there that are quite interesting to read. I have that linked in the description. But those are the big ones. And as I said, in this clip, for example, I was running this stuff, I was running this stuff, and this can be replaced with, well, actually options that do something. So what it actually did is that it prompted me to go back to my setup and actually reevaluate some of those choices. And I have gone through the guide again, and in particular for the pinnacle boss variant here on the level 100 variants, I have replaced some of these aspects now. So for example, there's a rapid aspect now, and a few of other choices like corruption on the two-handed weapon, for example, is a pretty good choice now. So previously I had edge masters there, for example, because I thought it was working properly and I was not aware of those other bugs on top of the rest. But these are some of the adjustments I made. And you just need to understand that some of those interactions do not work, and let's hope for a fix eventually. But this nerf here that everyone is crying about, I don't want to, like, you know, say that Lucky Luciano is, you know, maybe a bit hyperbolic with this, but it seems like people pick it up as something that just recently happened and, you know, evil Blizzard nerfing the rogues, and I don't think this is actually the case. The players that have played a rogue since season start have probably experienced how busted the rogue is in general, and how easy the game is in general because of all the rebalancing they have done. And this is not something that has happened just last night here. This nerf was already in the game on season start. I'm 99.9% sure. Just looking at this clip here. If the nerf just happened last night, this would look very different here. And what this also means is that if you are trying to stack core skill or cutthroat skill or marksman skill damage or so on your gear, you should probably try to replace this if you play a fully poison-centered build. So it only does not work for poison imbuement. For everything else, it still works, and also all the other aspects I just described, they still work for all the other damage. It's just poison imbuement is something special because of this, you know, calculation it does basically with your base attack damage and stuff like that. So for the most part, you actually do not really want to change your setups very much, because even if you use poison imbuement in your build, you don't necessarily go like all in with bursting venoms and all that stuff. This is usually something that you do only for like pinnacle bosses, or maybe in like T100 nightmare dungeons, like bursting venoms. Yeah, I have that here as well, for example. But for regular blasting, you don't really get to use your poison imbuement that much anyway, and it's only really like a thing for some elites and for some bosses. And in that case, being slightly unoptimized in those situations is not really so bad anyway, and it's more about actually trying to boost your overall damage output. So this is what this comes down to, and what I did here is that I just went ahead and yesterday on stream actually I was just like switching up the setup a little bit here. For example, I removed the closer glyph, I put a canny glyph instead for non-physical damage, and well, there are some other like small tweaks here. I think I also replaced like one Paragon board with Lyrana's Instinct. I think that was kind of stratagem here, so that is a kind of nice one. And I might do some further tweaking on, for example, the Pinnacle boss variant. I also went through my other game rogue guides here, for example, and I checked them all out, and it turns out nothing of them actually needed any changes besides the Twisting Blades. So I only replaced like core skill damage with close damage, for example, and then some tweaks on the Paragons and the aspects. But for example, in the case of Flurry IF, we don't even have poison imbuement, and the Death Trap does have it here right now, but it's also like something of kind of like a, you know, a supplementary choice. So it's not like fully built around there, for example. And similar for example, Rain of Arrows. So here there was also not really that much to change, but I am also still in the process of playing this build, and I might do some tweaks as I go anyway. So this is basically the TLDR of this. Yeah, the nerf did happen, but in the end, poison is still stronger than intended at the release of some builds like Twisting Blades because of the Blade Dancer bugs. And well, a few things are still also not working. So I'm gonna bug report this. I'm gonna hope that Blizzard fixes this so that everything just works as it should and is like intuitive. Because of course, having like a sheet like this where, yeah, this basically looks like the old overpower sheet that I saw from Macro Buyer Boy, where, you know, half the stuff worked and half the other stuff didn't, and there was zero systematic behind that. So it kind of looks similar here, to be honest, with just random multipliers not working and others just randomly working. So in the end, all of this stuff has to be fixed. And if that is fixed, even with a Blade Dance interaction fix, yeah, the poison builds will be just fine. And right now they still are, as you can see. So this is the video here about the poison nerf. So I just want to get this out there because I got like 2,000 questions last night in chat because everyone was like hysterical about some shadow nerf or something like that. It's not that bad after all. And that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Wish you good luck with your season, and see you guys next time.